going to tell you guys a story. If you would, it's about a father and a boy. Now, this boy, he is fascinated with weapons, with guns, because his dad, of course, his dad lives in a place where they go out and they hunt for their food. So this child is fascinated with guns, and he's fascinated with hunting, and he wants to go out there and he really wants to fire a weapon. So already at his young age, he has his mind set on firing a weapon. That becomes his future. He becomes obsessed with it. His father sees this, and his father knew this about him. A son will partake of the traits of the father, so the father knows this. With this child, he wants to go out there, he wants to fire a gun, he draws pictures about it and everything else. And he wants to kill an animal because it is exciting to him. The father sees this. Years go by, and the child asks his father, when are you going to take me hunting? The child is now 11 years old, and the father says, okay, come on. They pack up everything, and they go out into the wilderness. And the father sits down one night, he's telling his son, he says, son, I'm going to teach you about hunting the right way. His son is not listening, of course. He just wants to hear from his father when he gets to shoot a firearm. And so what the child does is, while the father is talking to him about very important things, the child is not really paying attention. And he's aiming his hand like he has a gun at birds and squirrels and everything that he sees, because he's anticipating he's going to be the best shot there ever is. He'll be able to kill something from 500 meters away. I mean, the kid is bragging on himself already. You know how kids do. I'm going to be the best at this, and I'm going to be the best at that. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be the best hunter ever, and I'll be able to shoot a rifle and hit an animal at 550 meters, right in the sweet spot, and I'll take him down every single time. So kids today do that same thing. So this kid, he's daydreaming while his father is talking. And when you're not listening, when you're daydreaming while somebody is talking, you tend to go out in this fuzzy area, this daze, and you're not really listening. So you miss the instruction. So the next morning pops up, and his dad says, son, here's a firearm. And he takes him through a basic course. He teaches him the basics about firearm. Now remember, the son didn't listen to a word he had to say the night prior. So he gets the firearm, he has ammunition, he has a backpack. I mean, he has basic necessities. He's listening to his dad, and as soon as his dad hands him the firearm, the kid goes back into his imagination. He's overwhelmed that he has a firearm. He has the ammunition. He has his backpack. He has a little bit of supplies. And the kid takes the rifle, and he's starting to pretend like he's shooting things with the rifle, not listening to his dad, and all of a sudden, he didn't hear anything anymore. The kid went way off in a daze. But when he comes back to himself, he finds out his father is gone. There's no one there. The kid's hollering for his dad, but he's so overwhelmed by the rifle, he really does not miss his dad until night comes, and his dad is still not there. Now the kid is out there by himself because his dad's nowhere around. He's scared to look for his dad, so the kid huddles up when the sun falls in his sleeping bag. And I was a bit nervous, but he has this gun. That becomes his security. The kid did not start a fire, anything else, because he was not listening to his dad prior. The kid finally, after very arduous thoughts, he goes to sleep. He wakes up the next morning, assuming his dad's going to be there, and he wakes up and his father's not there. Now the kid is somewhat in a panic. Well, guess what? Weeks go by. No dad. His dad's not there. The kid is hungry. His supplies are almost gone. His water's almost gone, because he's been eating it and drinking it, and he's scared to death of everything. And so he finally tries to remember what his dad was teaching him for all those years about weapons. And he can somewhat hear some of the things his dad said, and he can somewhat remember, but not really clearly. And so he loads up his rifle, and he goes out on his first hunt by himself in very not so good conditions. But when he goes out there, of course, there are predators out there. And as soon as he goes out there, he did not disguise his sin or anything else, because he didn't listen to instruction, and he's stalked by a predator. Well, wouldn't you know it, that evening, those predators came for him. He was bitten on the leg badly and bitten on the side badly. But he fought them off and managed to get around all, which scared the animals away. But now he's injured. He's injured. He's hungry. He's out of supplies. And with those injuries, no one's going to take care of him. So then that young kid says, well, I've got to take care of myself. And so he begins to develop this sense of, I've got to save myself. He's crying. He's in misery. But he manages to remember certain things his dad said. And he wraps him up. He cleans him out. He wraps him up. It's not a very good job, but it helps. He's still in pain. He's still hungry. He's limping on one leg. He's starving. And he drifts off to sleep as the sun falls. The next day he wakes up. He can't wait till the sun rises. And now at this point, he's so miserable, he gets angry. He gets so angry, he begins to murmur against his father for leaving him. And he blames his father for leaving him. He's starting to think now that if his dad hadn't left, he would have never been injured. He wouldn't be going through this hardship he's going through. And all of a sudden, he hears predators stalking him again. He didn't take chances this time. As the days go by, and he finds Flora to eat, and he begins to try to put together some of the instructions that he can remember from his dad, he begins to fish. He still has not killed anything with his rifle. He's starting to survive, all by his lonesome, but he's still blaming his dad. In fact, he's cursing out his dad just about on a daily basis every time something unfortunate happens. When months go by, life for this child is quite cruel, but at this point, after months go by, he's actually becoming used to certain conditions out there. He's still angry at his dad. One day he sees a deer. He sees a deer and he remembers his father saying something about a deer, how to kill it and how to respect wildlife. He remembers his dad saying you should kill by necessity, meaning never kill something that you won't consume, because his dad always told him that God put the animals there to sustain humanity, not to entertain humanity. At this point, the child's attitude has changed only because of suffering, only because of starvation, only because of thirst, because of the pain, and because of loneliness. So he sees a deer, and it's a small deer, and he sees the deer kind of running frantically in the woods. Well, the predators were after this little deer. Now, because he doesn't know where the rest of the predators are, he doesn't make a move. He's watching as the predators grab this small deer. And the deer is crying out in pain. And because a child is in pain, he can relate to both being alone and he can relate to being in pain. And he sees the female deer get close to the child deer, but the female deer won't come any nearer because of the predators. And he does not see the daddy deer that can fight off the other ones. As this boy is watching the little deer being overwhelmed by these predators, he sees the mother step in and the mother's trying to fight off the predators. But there's too many predators. And they begin to consume the young deer. And then they begin to consume the female deer. He's very moved in a sad way in his heart because he's seeing the suffering of an animal. He wanted to get up in his mind. He wanted to get up and use his rifle to shoot all the predators. After some time passes in that day, he's thinking to himself, how cruel is the animal kingdom? That was cruel. He can't shake it out of his mind how cruel predators are. How could they just attack this small little tiny deer? And then how could they attack the mother who was trying to save the small little tiny deer? The worst part about it is he asks himself, why didn't I do anything? Why didn't I get rid and dispatch those predators? Why didn't I do anything? He reasons with himself and he says the reason why is I was scared. So he comes to that result that he was scared. But he's deeply saddened because of how the predators were so cruel and heartless concerning that baby. The whole night he's going over through his mind, why didn't they just take the adults who have lived their life? Why did they take the small one? Then he remembers his dad saying, predators prey on the weak. Predators prey on the injured because they don't have to work so hard to kill it and to consume it. He also remembers his dad saying, son, we're not predators, and don't become a predator. Of course, being a child, he never really understood this until that one day he saw that. This kid is still alone and he has seen something horrific in his mind and it begins to change him. You see, at first when he went out there, he was pretending to shoot everything he saw and his dad left him. Now he's out there having to live among the elements and he begins to see cruel things in the animal kingdom. And now this kid hates predators, period, and he's hungry, but he decides to fish instead of killing an animal because he reasons with himself, well, I really don't need the meat yet, so I'm okay. I'm not going to kill it because I don't need it. But he can't stand predators. That includes wild dogs, wolves, coyotes, foxes. He doesn't like them at all because they kill senselessly in his mind. So one day, he stumbles across the home base, the place of places where all the predators are. It happens to be a pack of coyotes. He sees them and he sees the little pups running around. And they're so little and can't do anything, but he sees something astounding. The predators are taking care of their young. And it appears to him that the predators love their young. At this time, he remembers the average dog, how loving they can be. He remembers how cats can be. And he's reminded, wait a minute, I know that predators hunt, but they love their young. And they didn't kill all the deer. They killed what they could consume. And he reasons with himself, he says, wait a minute, they were just killing so they could eat. And then it snaps in his head, that's what my father was teaching. He begins to reason with himself and he says, you know, things really don't appear very clear. They can look one way, but in fact they're not. He's still traumatized, mind you, by seeing the killing of that deer, but at least now he understands that those animals were killing so that their young could survive. At this point, he begins to remember his dad telling him that God placed all things in this earth for the purpose of survival, so that life could go on. but don't become a predator. And he can't quite remember the rest, so now he's running around in confusion because it seems like his dad is telling him, don't become a predator because predators are no good. Yet he saw these predators feeding their young. Well, he goes on, and all of a sudden the seasons are changing. It's hard to find fish. So now he has no choice but to kill an animal. It's been many months, many months. So he loads his ammunition in the gun, and he hears predators, so he fires a warning shot. All the predators leave because he's not going to kill them. He's no longer angry at them at this point. He's grown a bit. He's matured. He can begin to see what life is. His wounds are healing. He's not so angry at his dad. He has become conditioned to the elements. Somehow he's adapting, and then he sees a squirrel. He needs meat for a system, but he sees a squirrel. Well, he takes out some very special ammunition, and it's getting cold, so he kills a squirrel. But when he kills a squirrel, his heart is kind of touched. So the young kid begins to pray, and he starts thanking the father for providing the squirrel, because he feels bad about killing the squirrel, but he knows he has to eat. And he remembers something else his father said. His father says, son, don't be a predator, because we're human, and humans are not predators. Then he remembers his father telling him all the things that God did in the earth for the sake of mankind. And he's just recalling things left and right. Then he remembers his dad saying something about him going up in life and suffering many things so that he can understand the smallest of responsibilities. And when you know it, after a few more weeks, his dad comes back. And the child is not very receptive of his own dad. He says, Dad, why did you leave me out here? At first, he didn't want to talk to him, but his dad's very patient. Why did you leave me out here? He said, son, you wanted to learn how to hunt. Yeah, but you left me out here and I was injured. I could have died. Things were after me. I saw horrible things. He said, yes, but son, you wanted to learn how to hunt. He said, it was in your heart to hunt since you were a baby, so I had to show you the way. He said, but you were nowhere around. He said, I know I wasn't, not that you could see. So he takes his son back to the place where son began at. And about a little bit away from his son was another camp, and it was his dad. Come to find out, his dad never left him. His dad was watching him from a distance. His dad was the one that was running the predators away so they wouldn't get to him, except for that one time, because he had to understand what a predator is. The reason why the wounds were healing so fast is because when the child went to sleep, his dad was applying healing balm to the wounds. But the child never knew it because the father knew his sleeping habits all too well. The reason why he didn't starve to death is because his dad was supplementing the fish that he caught, putting vitamins in it, so the child was sustained. In other words, the father was doing everything a father would do, but the child had no idea that the father never left. The father was watching the son in every aspect of his life during the entire time. When the father shows the son this, the son is deeply sorrowful. He says, Dad, I had no idea you were trying to teach me. He said, you didn't show up or anything, though. I could have been wounded. He said, no, I was too close. I was always there. He said, but you were not always there. You wanted to hunt, so I had to teach you how to hunt by putting you in a position to understand the animals you're hunting. See, at first, the child just wanted to go shoot up everything. So what his father did was he put him in the elements just like an animal would be in the elements. He put him in the elements with minimal protection so he could begin to experience what animals experience. And the child's mind clicks. He said, Dad, it's a day-to-day struggle, isn't it? Yes. Dad, they do. They work so hard and put up with so much just to survive, don't they? Yes. So he goes on, he tells his dad all these things he's learned, and his dad says, are you still so ambitious about being the best shot that anybody has ever seen? His son says, no, I'm not. I see the truth of it. Now I can see the truth. This story is just like your life. Your father knows exactly who you are. And when you came to this earth, he already knew the desires that would form inside of you. He knew exactly what you wanted, but he also knows exactly who you are. He knew you wanted, and you had ambitions to do many things, but because you did not understand all the elements that you would be dealing with, you had to learn. And so you were immersed in the wilderness, and you went through many things. You went through many things so you could, with first-hand experience, understand the plight of those who are in darkness, to understand the plight of those who are trapped in sin, to understand the plight of those who are desperate, who are hungry and starving, and manipulated, and those who manipulate. So that you could understand that individual that's in a gang and why they may appear to be so cruel and why they think the way they think. He put you in a predicament. He showed you firsthand what darkness was in a very special way. You were not destroyed. You may have been injured because you had the taste of sorrow, of despair, of loneliness, of rejection. You had the taste of successes and failures, of heartbreak, of all things, so that you could understand the very ones you would face in the future. so that when you face them, you would not instantly condemn them, but because now you understand them, you could, in truth, speak to them, walk with them, help them. You see, when he sent you to this earth, he knew you had an overwhelming heart to help somebody else. He knew that when he sent you here, you would say, I'm going to help everybody. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do all these good things. He knew what was in your mind, your imaginations. He knew you thought that the world was initially a playground until the world betrayed you and it turned very dark. He knew he immersed you in the darkness and that it ruined your vision and your imagination of all the good things you thought the world was. He had to show you the truth, not a lie, so that after you would go throughout your life cycle, you would understand what darkness is, because one day you would be sent right back into the darkness. See, if you didn't know the elements in the darkness and how they can affect people, you would be the first casualty in the darkness if he sent. In other words, he can never send you in the darkness if you have no experience in the darkness. Even Jesus said, I send you as sheep among wolves. That's right, into the lion's den. He knew that you would have a desire to help, and all those who need help are in the darkness. So he put you in the wilderness. You had ambition, you had a plan, but it carefully demonstrated to you what darkness really is and how bad it really hurts. So that if you were to see one in darkness, you could recognize that they had darkness influencing them, but they themselves were not the darkness. He allowed darkness to have a hold of you for a season, so that you could never say that darkness never had. He had you guilty for a reason, so that you can never brag that you were never guilty. And what that does is it cultivates compassion upon those who stand guilty in the world. Because you can understand what it is to be guilty, you can also look beyond it in another to give them real help. And based on where you are going to be sent, so did the Father expose you to a level of darkness, that darkness may never trick you or fool you or destroy you, so that you would have the same guilt as the other person. That's called understanding. You can never look at a man's face and discern his face if you have not gone through something similar and can recognize his face. You can recognize pain in the eyes of another if you yourselves have gone through that pain. You can recognize guilt in the eyes of another if you yourselves have stood guilty. Your father conditioned, but he was never far from you. You were never on your own. You were never left out and hung to dry. He was right there all the time to make sure that your experiences did not kill you, but rather they departed to you what cannot be gained any other way than to have experience, because he knew that one day you would have a heart to go to those in the darkness. And if he did not equip you, then that would destroy you. See, if you're not equipped to understand the truth of darkness, you can never go into the darkness and do anything, because you would be beguiled. You were beguiled a long time ago so that you won't be beguiled today. You were tricked a long time ago so that you won't be tricked today. You were seduced a long time ago so that you won't be seduced today. And today, now you have come to an age where you can go out into the darkness and help somebody else, and the darkness will not grab hold of you and trick you, because you understand its tricks. Your father did that for you because he understands what you truly desire to do. Your life is just like that father and that boy who went hunting. Your father already knew what you desired, and before that desire came full circle, he had already given you experience in what you would face, and he did so without you being destroyed. Now, just like that boy, when you don't understand that your father's been there the entire time, you can resent your own father. You'll blame your suffering on him when you don't understand what he was doing. Only after he understood what his father was doing did he love his father again. But all throughout his suffering, he was blaming his father, just like we did. But the father already knew. Notice in the story, the father never was angry at the son, was he? Because he already knew how his son would react, just like he already knew how we would react, undergoing a multitude of sorrows, sufferings, and losses. But when you discover that your father's been there the whole time, and indeed you see the truth of it, which takes experience and maturity, you'll love your father again. That's when you have grown. That's also when you're ready to go assist somebody else. And that is the story I wanted to share with you, to let you know that your entire past was not some worthless trek in your life, but rather designed, extremely useful, purposed. And your father was always there. He never left you. Now, as fathers and mothers, there's another part of this I want you to see. Can you imagine having the power to rescue your children, but you understand that without experience, they will surely die in the future? Can you imagine watching your child suffer? Can you imagine standing there watching your child suffer? You have the power to stop it at any given moment, but you know that without experience, your child will not make it. How painful would it be to stand there and watch your child suffer, knowing that he has to suffer? I don't care who you are, that would be painful. I can only imagine how painful a process it is for even our Father, how much of a painful process it is to raise us. You know, you read the Bible, you read this term, God suffers this and that and the other. Come to find out our Father is so hopeful for us. If he was not hopeful, he would not be patient with us. He does not control our choices. Can you imagine having the power to rescue all of your children? But you know you've given them the ability to choose freely, and they must have experience, or they'll choose darkness every single time because you designed it that way. You have to endure something generation after generation to see your children suffer, to hear them suffer. Could you hear your infant cry in distress and not do anything? No, you could not. You think it's an easy job for the Father to raise us? I can't answer that. And when you begin to mature and you realize this yourself, knowing that we're made in the image and likeness of the Creator, that it grieved God that he made man one time, you understand what that grieving is. Sometimes we get things back. No, it is painful to hear your child talk about you like a dog, to hear him shun you and all of the wisdom you tried to give him. It is painful for you to endure that. Yet our Father endures and has always endured. Hopeful for us to choose him in the end, yet he does not force us, and he never left us. He has watched everything, he heard everything, and he does not hold anything against us. Evidence of that is in the proof of the sending of Jesus of Nazareth. If he were annoyed with us, he would not have sent his son. If he were tired of us, he would not have sent his son. If he would have lost hope in us, he would not have sent his son. But he did send his son, so that even though we did horrible things and hated him, all of us could be forgiven. Your past is your Father's suffering to see you in distress, knowing that you need experience. We had it backward. Like he didn't want to show up, he never left, never once. If you can understand this, it changes the way you see the Father, and it creates a desire in you, and a deep respect and a love for the Father maybe you didn't have before. And if you read the New Testament again, and then jump right into Romans and Hebrews, you're going to see this story again in a biblical context. We get it backwards sometimes because often we're immature. Our Father did not forsake us. He was teaching us the entire time. Your past is a love story, not a tragedy. Your past is your past because a hopeful Father who governs all has hope in you. He equipped and armed you and qualified you to do exactly what you truly desire to do. I hope that you can see that now. I hope that we can move away from ever cursing our past and to understand it in truth. Because the Father in heaven truly loves us without reservation, without end. Of all who have ever loved you in your life, none have loved you greater than the Father loves you. Even right now, he has always loved you.